perhaps you'll want a second opinion.
Brain cloud. I knew it. Well, I didn't know it, but I knew it.
Yes.
What am I going to do?
You have some time left, Mr. Banks. You have some life left. My advice to you is live it well.
Inside.
Foreclose that Tristan.
What do your sensors indicate?
Nothing, sir.
Nothing. Mr. Data, you must mean that it's empty of matter. There's always some energy form at work.
Sir, our sensors are showing this to be the absence of everything. It is a void without matter or energy of any kind.
Yet this hole has a form. Data has height, width.
Perhaps. Perhaps not, sir.
It's hardly a scientific observation, Commander.
Captain, the most elementary and valuable statement in science, the beginning of wisdom, is, I do not know. I do not know what that is, sir.
This episode brought to you by American Panoscope, also in association with Cyberdyne Systems.
Oh, lordy, lordy, it's the podcast once again.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh no. How we doing, everybody? Somehow went to kind of a little...
Pretty good.
Finish?
What is this voice?
What is this voice? Swedish, perhaps? I don't know.
Swedish chef.
You're channeling the Swedish chef. That's what I'm thinking.
My ancient ancestor, noble Swedish chef.
Yes.
So, I love the Muppets. I watched them when I was little and stuff. Funny thing is that if I remember right, Jim Henson and Frank Oz worked the Swedish chef together, and one was the hands and one was the face. And so, if I remember right, Jim Henson was the hands, and he would just do things with his hands to try to throw Frank Oz off while he was doing the puppetry.
Well, it adds a bit of chaos to it.
Yeah.
We're doing it. We're here again. How's it going, Jason? What have you been up to?
Not bad. I've decided to punish myself this week by watching the rest of the Phoenix Wright series. I finished season 1 and was working on season 2, and it doesn't get any better. It doesn't make any sense.
Uh-oh.
The characters are just so weird, and so there's his partner is a spirit medium who, when she channels a spirit, becomes the person that she's channeling, which is usually Maya. So it's Phoenix Wright's old boss who was killed in the second episode, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And it's just like everybody sits there and is like, oh yeah, she's just a spirit medium and she totally channels people. And they gloss over it, but at the same time, it's like at one point, Maya gets accused of murder because she channeled a vengeful spirit that killed her client, and it's like, wait a minute, Maya had no reason to kill this guy, and yet you're saying, but that it's just crazy.
They didn't just subscribe. I was testing. They did not just subscribe. I was testing to see if it works.
Yeah.
That was a subscriber from 8 years ago, everybody. oh, look who just subscribed. Oh, look.
Oh my gosh.
We appreciate it, old Chance there, buddy.
Our saving grace.
How are things going?
Oh, just delightful. I watched an old movie this week, which was lovely. It's called Run Silent, Run Deep, because I'm apparently a 75-year-old woman.
Yeah.
And Clark Gable is just, even though he's older, he's just so dashing in it. And so
he gives you the vapors. He's dreamy.
Oh, he's such a competent sub-commander who is tough on his men, but for a reason.
Oh. I do need to watch that. You recommended that.
Yeah, you would like that movie a lot.
Yeah, I love me some submarine action. No innuendo, just men in a submarine.
just a tin can full of bloody sailors almost dying.
Some burly man without shirts, perhaps.
Couple of them, sure.
Sure, but engineer, most likely.
Yeah, oh yeah. It gets toasty in the Pacific,
It does. Silver. How's it going?
Such an interesting week. Not exactly the same as last week. Stuck in a testing center again. Yeah, because they decided they want to punish us before spring break, only to go and do more projects during spring break. I hate them.
Yeah.
My theory is that I would rather not have spring break and do normal school because they levy so much extra homework for spring break because they assume you're doing nothing that I would actually have less work to do if I had normal classes.
Oh, it's great. They assigned a group project.
What? For spring break?
When half of your group is going like out of town.
Oh yeah, least. 2 of them are from Illinois. They're leaving back to Illinois for the week, and we're just like, cool.
Awesome.
You can totally do Zoom calls. You can totally you guys got this.
We have
figured out your
options,
college
not great
students.
options.
Your Godzilla
is this like a
college
5,000
students.
level class, or like what level of class is this?
A chemistry lab.
Oh my god. Science nerd professors, my lord. Just because they didn't have friends or do anything for spring break. Good god.
You can't either.
You know that like 50% of the college professors were out partying it up when they were younger. Now they're using this opportunity to get back at the students.
I never got invited to cool parties.
I mean, at least with reading assignments and like regular homework, I mean, there's like some you can see an argument for it, but group project, what? No one's here.
Yeah.
Oh my
Right.
god.
They could have just
Awesome.
postponed it until the next week.
That would
Wait,
make
is this
sense.
is this the professor that has the interesting accent?
Oh yeah, he's the TA.
Oh, okay. So he didn't do it.
He didn't do it. He's the TA that has to grade it over.
I was gonna say that might also make more sense. That
African man.
Poor guy.
He doesn't understand these American customs.
Yeah, like he just like maybe, but no, that's not his fault. It's all right. Well,
He was very confused about President's Day. That came up.
let me ask you this: why do you do this?
Oh no, African Ross is here.
Oh no.
He's come. At least it's not Hacker Man Ross. That's that guy.
Oh, don't worry, he's
Thank
coming.
goodness. No. No.
Thinks he can hack everything. Well, beat boops
Absolutely.
and lazy Susans inside of phone booths.
None of that.
Listen, I
No
paid a lot of
Robin
money for that.
Williams.
I'm gonna get I'm gonna get my money's worth. All right.
Use your best hacks.
Go
Oh,
YouTube.
he's a hacker man. Oh, he's hacking into the mainframe.
Oh,
All
gosh.
right. This is the worst
You
version of
combine
you.
that with YouTube.
Robin Williams Ross is literally the worst version of Ross because he doesn't go away. He doesn't.
No, he
leave
always
when
comes
he
back.
should. He stays
like
too
herpes.
long.
Would it be worse
Yeah.
if you combined Yakub with Robin Williams?
Yeah, do that, you freak.
I
Oh,
don't know how you do that.
oh, I made the Caucasoid race. I did. Yes.
Well, that's just
The evil
that's
science
just Robin
Yakub.
Williams taking credit for Yakub's work.
No, but I am. I'm him. I made Robin Williams too. I made him
Much
talk
like
just
stealing
me.
his comedy, he also stole Yakub's credit for creating the white man.
Well, maybe. Listen, don't look too far into it. All right, just enjoy the ride.
Robin Williams is best to stand up. Just saying.
Ugh.
Not stand up comedy. Best is improv, I should say.
Yeah, well,
he
yeah,
did
he's-
really good off the cuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I did a lot of cocaine when I made Popeye. It was bad for me.
Yeah.
Oh.
See,
God.
Popeye. This is the worst version of you, Ross. Anyway.
I watched Popeye recently, within the
Oh
past
my
month,
God! Why? What?
because I remembered seeing it when I was a lot younger, and I wanted
liked it.
I wanted to see it again. It was like kind of do I really remember what went on in the show? And I didn't. It'd been way too long, and so I saw it on it came up on my videos you might want to see on YouTube, and I'm like, yeah, I'll watch that.
Want to
yeah,
make sure it wasn't a fever dream.
Yeah.
Well, you can't even understand Robin Williams in that movie.
So they actually had to go back in
Yeah.
and dub some of his lines because
The problem is he couldn't remember it because he was yacked out of his mind, and it was all improv. So they're just like, I don't know, mumble, I guess. Like,
Oh my God.
Is this pre or post The Shining?
this is post.
Oh, I'd have to look.
She went and did this after The Shining, so it was really good for her. Because
Yeah.
Bob Evans had like a very familial feeling, like cast and crew, and it was really bad for Robin Williams because there was a lot of drugs on that island when they made that movie.
As I recall, that place is they built that set, and then they just left it, and now it's like a tourist attraction.
Yep.
Well, that same thing
I think
happened.
you'd have a
with,
wedding venue there.
Yeah.
That same thing happened with Tatooine. It was just in the desert in Tunisia forever. And you could go back and see like the ruins of it, because back in the day, unlike today,
I think
where
it's a
they're still
hotel
terrible.
now. I think
Well,
it's a
they
hotel
rebuilt
now,
it.
and you can stay there.
They
Yeah.
rebuilt it for the prequels, but they were pretty much just abandoned because like Hollywood built a thing and then just left it there. And it went into ruins for years and years, and people used to have to go trek out into the desert and find it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's been rebuilt for the prequels. This
Yeah,
week,
so-
unless you have something to share.
No, go for it.
This week, so I want to readdress very quickly Dune, because I have had the opportunity to rewatch the first one and see the second one again. So now I've got a
Okay.
full
Oh my
scope
Lord.
of the experience of Dune, right? So in reflection, experience. He doesn't like dialogue, everybody.
There's that article that I attached to the thing too about Chani. We can talk about that now if you want to.
We can. I don't know if it. Let me see. The point being that I want to talk about sort of the my overall experience having sort of a wider view of the film. Paul, look, I've read the books, and it's been a long time since I read the books. I tried to go find my copy of the first one. I found 2 copies of the second one and all of the copies of the rest of them, but I couldn't find the original one, so I couldn't compare. But in my experience, so in the original, good Lord, I'm going to have to... This isn't going to be a massive discussion about Dune again. I'm just going to talk about sort of I've had a chance to reflect on it and think about it. And in the movie, Paul comes across as this is either poor writing or poor planning from Denis Villeneuve. Because in the first one, Paul says basically, I don't want to be Duke. And his dad says, well, I didn't want to either, but I came to it on my own. And all I want you to do is be who you want to be, blah, blah, blah. And then his dad dies. The first thing Paul says, Paul's mother says, is, "Well, your father didn't believe in revenge." And he goes, "Well, I do." And then in the later part of the movie, Paul goes, "All I want to do is live here quietly with the Fremen and Chani, and I don't want to go south because I'm afraid of what will happen." And then he goes south, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm really into this now." And so he swings what he wants dramatically throughout the 2 movies. Like, he both doesn't want to be Duke.
I can tell you a couple. Go ahead, Ross.
Oh, well, because that's not how he is in the book either. Like, he's purely driven by revenge in that first book.
Yes.
Like, I don't know. I've only read the first one.
Well, right. And in the first book, he says, I don't want to do it. And then in the second movie, he goes, well, I want revenge for what happened. And then later he's like, I don't want to do it anymore. And then he's like, I really want to do it. And it's convoluted and poorly written. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah. So I do remember fairly well some of the first part of the Dune books. One thing that I do remember is that Duke Leto Atreides, he issues Conley against House Harkonnen. Which is basically their speak for, we have a never-ending eternal vendetta against you, and we will destroy you if we can. And Paul, far from being like, I don't want to be Duke or anything like that, he was raised to be Duke. It wasn't even like he realized, it wasn't even like he was like, this isn't what I want to do. It's like, this is what I'm going to do. This is who I am. This is who I'm going to be. And the only reason in the book that he didn't want to go south was because of his premonitions and stuff. His visions of the future. He saw this jihad, and he's like, I don't want to be the cause of billions and billions of people's deaths, so I don't want to do that. It wasn't until later that he's like, there's only one way this is going to end, and it's with the jihad, or I'm dead. So I'm going to do the
that's
jihad.
Fine. So we don't need to get into a massive discussion on Dune.
No, go for it.
My point being that I've had a chance to reflect on the 2 movies because I've seen them both a couple of times and in full continuity. And Paul's motivation swings widely from one thing to another. And Chani's motivation swings widely from one thing to another. Where at first she doesn't like him, then she likes him. Then she's like, I believe in you and following you anywhere. And then he goes south and she's like, I hate you and everything you're about. And she doesn't justify it in the movie. And her character is utterly confusing as to what she wants, where she's like, well, don't worry, I'll be with you always. And then she slaps him and then leaves. And so the movie is, I went from this is a 7.5. Like, visually, the movie's overwhelming and it's wonderful, and I love the story of Dune. But in reflection of the poor writing, it's more of a 6 for me. like there are problems with the story. There are problems with how it's presented. And honestly, on reflection, the Emperor is actually not that bad. I find his character at least consistent. The problem with the Emperor I have is his character is supplanted by his daughter, which wasn't how it was done in the book. His character's personality, literally in the movie, his character is sitting there and his daughter is counseling him on everything. And I'm like, okay, yeah.
I mean, I guess they probably paid a lot of money to Florence Pugh, but okay.
Yeah, you're right. The Emperor, whatever his name was, I forget what it was. He was much more a stronger character in the book.
He was.
And
but honestly, I don't dislike his acting as much as I expressed last time. I actually think he was quite fine, but the problem is his character is supplanted by the daughter, so he doesn't seem as strong. So when he's sitting quietly in the garden and he's being counseled by his daughter perpetually, and then you see him on this giant throne, and I'm supposed to be like, oh yeah, you're the guy in charge. You know what I mean? It's not as good. It lessens the impact of who the Emperor is. He's supposed to be a imposing figure, which is why it sort of sells what Paul pulls off even bigger.
Right. The thing is like you were saying, he needs to be bigger. He needs to be more imposing. He's the emperor of a galactic empire. He has hundreds of planets and millions, billions of people that are underneath him. That, you know, he needs to be. I'm the guy in charge. Otherwise, anyone would try to steal the throne at that point.
Well, and they spend a lot of time talking about, I don't want to go south, because if I go south, horrors will happen, which is a thing in the book, and it's in all the other versions. But Chani goes, I'll support you no matter what, and then they go south, and he becomes gung-ho on the cause. And Chani, they don't justify why she's upset. They don't. Passingly, they kind of suggest that it's because he's starting a war. But they were already in a war. They were attacking spice miners in the north.
They hated the Harkonnens.
They were already involved with this. So I don't know why she's upset, and I don't think they justified it in any way. And then she walks away looking at the sky like, this is horrible. Like she knows better, even though they don't explain it or justify it. Once again, Denis Villeneuve, you hack, you need to explain it to the audience with perhaps dialogue. Anyway,
how dare you read that blasphemy?
Well, I've had a chance to reflect on the movies, having seen it again, and look through it overall, and I have a different perspective than I had before. I still really enjoy them. They're visual spectacles, and I enjoy it. As long as I have a chance to see more Dune, I'm super happy. But it's not perfect by any means, and the story has schizophrenic plot hole issues.
I like that.
But that being said, that they're still good, and I would recommend it. And as far as movies come out, it's the best one out at the moment, anyway. But yes,
which
this is me
kind of sad.
This is me re-reflecting on Dune. Spoilers over. I've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy VII. I'm going to go over it really quickly. We don't need to spend a lot of time on Final Fantasy VII. I love it. It's great. There are... I'm mainly addressing Maximilian dudes. What's that?
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the mini games.
No, well, yes. So Maximilian dude he has issues with the first one. The reason why I'm bringing it up is he's famously a huge Final Fantasy guy, Final Fantasy VII guy. He has issues with the first one. He says it's imperfect. And he loves the second one. He thinks it's nearly perfect and everything. I have a little bit of a different... I think at the moment, because I'm not done with the game, I prefer the first one. And I have minor issues with the second. The narrative that's been coming out of the community as well, Final Fantasy VII needed to evolve into something more, that gaming has moved in a different direction, and you needed to move with it, blah, blah, blah. So they created more of an open world in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, where there's a lot more side missions, yada, 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 akin to something like a Witcher 3, or freaking that one with the redheaded girl on PlayStation.
Oh, Horizon Zero Dawn.
Horizon Zero Dawn. Famously, the director of Final Fantasy VII often talks about Horizon Zero Dawn as one of his favorite games, and he loves it. So it makes sense that there's a reflection on that.
Yeah.
There might be bias in my regard because I've played Final Fantasy VII through twice. I've played the beginning part like 8 times because I always get bogged down after I get out of Midgar. So my favorite section is Midgar, and the first game is Midgar.
Midgar is really good.
So that might be why I favor Midgar in its own way. I kind of favor the early section because that's when I play the classic. I kind of preferred Midgar. I'm still having a lot of fun. It's a great game. The mini games are infuriating, particularly the sit-up game. And Ross can recall yesterday me screaming at the television that I can't get the sit-up thing right. I saw a review where the guy was like, it's an 11 out of 10 until I got to the sit-up game, and now it's a 5. But that being said, it's a load of fun. I just wanted to bring that I'm playing it in sort of a short review. At the moment, I still prefer the first one, even though there's a lot more to do and a lot more going on. But I do have a bias towards Midgar. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Midgar is my jam. Regardless of that, I've been watching Cowboy Bebop, and it's great still. It's funny to sit and watch and be like, oh, remember when all the characters are fleshed out and they're great, and they have their own personalities and story is good. Like, remember those times? Yeah, I remember those times back in the bygone era of 98. Oh, goodness. Regardless of that, there is a stupid amount of things to discuss. Is this really... I suppose it's kind of news dumpy.
The Distracted Gamer Podcast's big steaming pile of news dump.
All right, we're gonna, so Ross can get out of his head. We're gonna start out with Rooster Teeth. What's going on there, champ? What's happening?
So, as many have probably heard, Rooster Teeth is closing down. They're still open currently, but probably by May, they're going to be done. Which is kind of I think probably not a surprise. I think even one of the founders, Bernie Burns, said something similar of, it's not a surprise, but it is like a bummer. Like, it's disappointing and kind of sad. Rooster Teeth, famous for Red vs. Blue.
There have been people calling financial problems for a while, to be fair, and anyone who pushed against that was called like conspiracy theorists, but there were signs of issues for a while. But yeah.
Yeah, and like so Rooster Teeth came to prominence because of their machinima Red vs. Blue. They were far from the first machinima, but they were probably one of the more popular ones, certainly at the time. They founded in 2003, so we're 21 years now. Not
a bad run.
That's pretty good.
I think the Twitter still says 20 years and many more to come, or something like that.
Oh. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So my history with it is like I loved Red vs. Blue, especially back in the day when Halo was actually, a game that people wanted to play. I kind of was following their content till probably about 11 years ago, and then I kind of stepped out. Like, it wasn't anything I watched anymore. But that's really when they kind of got bigger, including the RTX events, and so on and so forth. But this is just kind of an initial look at everything, because honestly, this is going to be something that's going to be picked over a lot over the coming years, because it's very complicated. It's a very long history, especially for something that's on the internet. And yeah,
it's, just to add slightly, it could not be underemphasized how big Rooster Teeth was. How large an effect it had on gaming and YouTube and Let's Plays and everything.
Yeah, I mean, Achievement Hunter, Let's Play, Funhouse. I mean, those three just alone were huge. I mean, to the point where I think Funhouse has been spun off a couple times out of that company into other places. Like, it's nuts.
Massive. And so the
Again,
collapse of Rooster Teeth is a huge, momentous sort of cascading event.
Well, I mean,
and there are
they
many
had,
reasons
their
for it
RTX
that I'm sure
events.
you'll get into.
Yeah, I mean, their RTX events, I mean, they capped out, I think, at 65,000 people showing up for them. It's huge.
Yeah,
and not only did
massive
they have the ones in
convention.
Austin, yeah, the ones in London. I think they had 2 years that they had them in London, 3 years that they were in Sydney, Australia. So they did, and up until last year, they were still running RTXs. Apparently, though, it was said by I think the general manager at Rooster Teeth, Jordan Levine, I believe is his name, that when he canceled RTX 2024, he said it was never being profitable. Like, it's never been profitable, RTX. So that's
I wonder, I've heard how expensive conventions can be, but with 65,000 people showing up, you can't manage to wring a profit. You can't manage to get through advertising, through ticket sales. You can't manage to do something to wring a profit at
sponsorships.
Well, I'm sure you've got more reflections out of that anyway, but keep going.
But yeah, so I mean, I just kind of want to give a really, I think the thing that probably most people remember about Rooster Teeth is all the drama, at least as of late, the last few years. And there's been a lot.
Oh, what are you talking about?
Yeah, and there's a lot of back and forth on just some of these things that I'm going to talk about. So
go for it.
So yeah, for some fans, 2014 is when they say Rooster Teeth kind of had their big, the beginning of the end, when they were acquired by a company called Fullscreen, I believe, which later was then acquired by AT&T. So basically, they became corporate owned. The popular at the time Rooster Teeth guy was, one of them was Ray Narvaez Jr. He leaves. Monty Ohm passes away in 2015. He was their kind of head of their animation world, I think he was the director for them, as I recall. It
was a big deal about their success. I mean, he was the reason why Red versus Blue, our Ruby worked and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, and there's drama with that too. Not just him passing away, but supposedly there was disagreements with somebody else back there. In that behind the scenes world that he had, and yeah, it's not just him passing away, but also the rumors of really hard feelings before that. In April 2018, Mika Burton, daughter of LeVar Burton, leaves Rooster Teeth and throughout the years has said some pretty harsh things about them. Allegations of racism, sexism, so on and so forth. That is the theme that keeps coming around with Rooster Teeth. That's a topic that's hard to delve through because it's all allegations and nothing to back it up. However, it is something that comes up a lot. And it's considering some of the things that happen with some of the people that leave the company later. Maybe things did happen. I don't know. But then February 2019, this is probably the one that got a lot of press. At least I remember hearing about it a lot. It kind of spilled over into a lot of comment sections all over the internet. Was Vic Mignogna. He's a voice actor, pretty famous in that world. He had allegations come out against him. He was at the time working, I think, on their Ruby project, or maybe it was Genlock, but I think it was Ruby. This is a horrendous topic. I'm just going to mention that it happened because, my lord, there is a lot on just that topic alone. I mean, there's probably 1,000 video essays on this on YouTube alone, back and forth about who's right, who's wrong.
Which
Vic
more
being
detail
innocent,
than
Vic
we're gonna
not being
go
innocent.
into.
Oh yeah. All I'm going to say is that it happened and it looked real bad and it was really harsh on the community.
Sure.
Then Gray Haddock steps down. I believe he was also in their animation studio seems to have a lot of problems. I believe that's where he stepped down from, as I recall. Then Bruce Green and Lawrence Sontag leave Funhouse. They were the guys that kind of started that. And they leave. That was a kind of a hard hit.
Them and James, and there are other guys, but drama happens later. Anyway.
Yeah, and that there wasn't drama when they left, but yeah, at the time it was just a real bummer.
It's almost like they got off the sinking ship.
Yeah, people wonder now if they look at it and go, they saw something coming and skedaddled. In June 2020, Joel Heyman, voice of Caboose on Red vs. Blue, and I believe he also voiced a Ruby character. I didn't watch Ruby, guys. Sorry, I wasn't into Rooster Teeth at the time. Certainly not their animation. He was fired from Rooster Teeth because he had some opinions and voiced them online that apparently they felt didn't align with Rooster Teeth. They were political in nature. Apparently, he leans a little more conservatively than the rest of the company. So he was let
Funny
go.
that
And that
the
was kind
company
of
is quite left-leaning, being in Texas of all places. But
Austin, Texas, and that's
Austin. Yeah, that's fair.
But also in June 2020, Bernie Burns leaves. He's also one of the founders. Joel Heyman was as well, by the way.
Fled to Australia.
Yeah, he moved to Australia, and I believe.
So
I have a feeling he
random.
also saw something coming and decided to get while the getting was good. But that's just my opinion. Who knows? September 2020, Miles Luna leaves Rooster Teeth. And then October 2020, we have the Adam Kovich and Ryan Hayward incidents. I feel bad for Ryan because I think it's Adam that has the worst one, where he was, or maybe it's Ryan that has the worst one. Basically, there was some inappropriate pictures being fluttered around. One of them was chasing after some fans that were maybe not of age. Weren't of age, let's just say.
Well, I can
Whereas one was just
superficially say that Adam took inappropriate pictures of himself in the office and was sending them to people. There weren't accusations necessarily of him sleeping with fans.
No.
Ryan, on
the other thing that happened was
a
video of Adam and his wife together in, a marriage state. We'll say that she didn't know was being taken, and that's not good, but not the same as
not good.
Using your position to sleep with fans who some may not be of age. That's not great. That's really bad.
Well, the best, having gone over the timeline with him, the best you can say is he didn't necessarily sleep with underage fans, but he was interacting with them in a flirty nature before when they were underage.
Yeah, which is...
I'm going to say something...
I believe they call it grooming.
Yes. Look, I'm not a huge Ryan Hayward fan. I kind of liked Adam. It's hard to say this because everybody wants to have a hard stance on things that happen. I'm going to say that he was never convicted of anything, and nothing ever came out that was that he was convicted of anything criminal, but he was ostracized nonetheless, which, as somebody who believes in due process, is inappropriate. Now, do I find his actions moral? Absolutely not. Do I like him? No. He was sleeping around on his wife, sleeping with fans, using his position to get into it, kind of a Me Too-ish sort of situation. Apparently, he was very rough when they were intimate. And all of this came out from people who were sleeping with him and then had records and text messages and whatnot. It's fine to fire him for conduct, but they banned him from being on Twitch and YouTube. And it's like, the guy hasn't been convicted of anything and you're ostracizing him simply because of public opinion. He hasn't been, no due process has occurred, and it's inappropriate if we want to live in a society that doesn't just everybody decided we hate this person and they should go. Coming from someone who doesn't like him and is extremely morally the opposite direction of his actions. But anyway.
So yeah, and that was the next big one. I think after Vic Mignogna, that was the one that really hit hard at Rooster Teeth and in their community. It's pretty brutal. Jeremy Dooley leaves Achievement Hunter. Then we have the Kadin Jensen incident, that was in October 2022. Basically, she's an employee at Rooster Teeth, this Jensen. I believe Jensen is trans. The F slur got thrown around quite a bit, not the classic 4-letter swear word, but the other one. Around and at this person, at Jensen. Jensen then apparently when they kind of pushed back a little, they just started calling Jensen Fugs, which is really rude in and of itself. It implies a lot of different things. Basically just allegations of a really awful working environment. Also October. Oh wow, a lot of these are October 2022. Good lord.
Not to justify anything. Once again, we aren't there. Nobody's involved. We don't actually see what's going on. This is happening during an era of high sensitivity.
Well,
so
yes,
it's hard to say
that,
whether or not these are exaggerated, or there's genuine horrible toxicity going on, or there's probably somewhere in between.
The thing I'll say about this, because a lot of these problems that come out of Rooster Teeth are a lot of bad workplace environment issues. The first few,
there's a common thread, so to speak.
Right. The first few, okay, whatever. That can happen. But I mean, if they're corporate now. They're publicly owned. They're in the public now.
By Warner.
You'd think their HR department would be a lot more alert and harsh on these kind of things and try and keep this sort of thing right out of there and document things thoroughly so that way they can come out and say nobody ever came to us with this. But that never happens. I've never seen where that has happened. I've never seen it's just over and over again throughout all this. I went to HR did nothing, and then Rooster Teeth has nothing to say about it because probably their HR did nothing. At least that's how it reads to me. Could be way off. But if you had the evidence that you did something, why would you not show it, especially after the third, fourth, fifth time this was brought up? So I'll just go through the October 2022 ones because there's a lot of them. So that's the Kaden Jensen incident. Matt Bragg is laid off. Alana Pierce leaves, which she was on Funhouse and others. She was quite a popular figure there. New allegations against Adam Kovich, so that's fun. Then October 2023, Achievement Hunter shuts down, which is one of the longest running things they did there. And finally, that's the same year, RTX 2024 is canceled. I mean, it's just a hit list of the worst, that. None of that's good for the image of your company, and probably really demoralizing for your community, which had been built up for so long at that point. That by this point, I think people were kind of filtering out slowly and not so slowly. Again, I am just the only person here that's slightly more into Rooster Teeth than I think everybody else.
I mean, I probably watched it more than everybody else besides you, but yeah.
Yeah, and again, mine was much earlier than when they hit their peak. So, and when I did watch it at their peak, it was Funhouse and Achievement Hunter, and that was it. So,
well, how about a post-mortem then? What do you think happened? Overall, give me your thesis.
As somebody who would kind of bump up against the Rooster Teeth community through various online places, honestly, from my position, I think they grew too fast. To be honest, I think that's part of the corporate issue.
Yeah, well, they kind of had this guys, a bunch of dudes hanging out, cussing at each other, or playing video games, sort of thing, and that doesn't translate into a more structured corporate environment.
No, and I think the problem they ran into, I think they grew too fast. I think that's part of the corporate problem, though, is corporate saw this opportunity and possibility and just blew it up. I think they blew it up way too fast. I mean, because at one point in time, Rooster Teeth had 400 employees. 400.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Now,
granted, they were making a lot of content, but still, 400's nuts.
I mean, it's more than some development companies for video games.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, because the things you'll remember about Rooster Teeth are Red vs. Blue, Ruby, maybe Genlock, but they had a lot of other shows besides that, even in addition to their YouTube content. And I think there was just too much too fast. If you're asking me on that side of things, I think on the other side of things, I think all the drama, all the mismanagement, all the hard feelings behind the scenes in the animation side of things, I think that really demoralized the fan base. I think it kind of tore it apart. I think it made people just go, ugh. whatever, and walk away. And that's how I see it. And again, I have not deep dived on this, and to be honest, it would take a long time to deep dive all that. I
yeah, and we don't
should,
need to spend the whole podcast talking about it.
No, God, I don't have the time to research all that. I mean, you know, that's legitimately, that could be somebody's like papers at college, like going into the history of this company. Like there's a lot here, especially if you're going to delve into like the fan and community reaction to things, because they had a very vocal community. It would be insane. It would be a lot of work, but I think it was just like a perfect storm of bad corporate management, internal bad management, and then just all this drama just kind of fizzling everything out.
I'm going to take a perhaps different angle from somebody who viewed it. They went through, there was a massive amount of culture war changes going on while Rooster Teeth was going through some problems. And when they went through problems, they got caught in the crossfire of the big Me Too movement and the accusations and the everybody going woke sort of thing. And their political structure in the company was left-wing anyway. And despite the sort of foul-mouthed familial nature of everybody just kind of cussing around, guys hanging out, it felt that there was an overcorrection to try and be as politically open-minded, and we're going to hire diverse individuals, and we're going to open it up to women, and we're going to be as hard the other direction as we can to correct for all of the accusations that we're going through. And the problem is that scares off what is essentially like teenage boys hanging out and listening to guys cuss about playing video games. Because suddenly now your focus is trying to sort of create this public image to express how look how moral we are, look at how we fix things, we're no longer the era of the accusations with Ryan and whatnot. And that overcorrection made the content terrible, and that scared people off.
Well, and I think that's a double-edged sword too. I think it cuts both ways, because I think on one hand they would, on the other side of things, I think it would sound like lip service, like no, see, we're doing so much better, and then yet more stuff comes out about them being not great to people behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And so I think on each side of that, you have like where it's like, oh yeah, okay, yep, tell them what they want to hear, and then on the other side of it's like, yeah, well, you told us what we want to hear, and it still sounds like you're assholes. Like,
yeah, they overcorrect, and then the corporate structure is still really bad, so to speak.
Yeah, I
because I can tell you qualitatively, like, as somebody, well, as somebody who watched their content during the peak, it stopped being good. It just did.
Yeah, it did. Absolutely. I think part of that too is because it's funny. I was there when Michael first came on. You know, the very angry New Jersey man. And I remember people either hated him or loved him. I hated him at first. I ended up liking him.
Yeah, I had that.
And it's funny.
That go through.
When he first was there, compared to when I heard him like years later, it's like, oh, well, he just grew up, because you can't be that guy forever. And it's just kind of like, yeah, like I think there's an aspect of that too, where it's like, I mean, these people grow up, man. Like they can't be this way forever, and things got to move on. But, and I think that's hard for people, because you know everyone wants to have you play the hits. But
agreed. So, anything else to add before we shift on to the other massive topic?
I look forward to in-depth YouTube videos about this. It's going to be amazing. There's going to be a lot of them.
We will readdress it again. I assume Jason wasn't really a consumer of these sorts of things.
I mean, I knew that they were there, and I'd heard of like Ruby, and I'd heard of Red versus Blue, but they never were something that piqued my interest that I wanted to get into. And I never really liked those game. I never really liked those videos where it was like, watch us play a video game. I've never really liked that.
That's fine. I don't get Twitch, but it's huge. Like,
I know.
It's not for me. I don't know what to say.
I'm that one guy. I'm that one dad who looks at my kids and is like, "We have that video game. Why aren't you playing it?" Instead of watching somebody on YouTube play it. Like, seriously, the game is right here. Just play it. And my kids are watching something on YouTube. You know.
We have that video game at home.
But it doesn't have the guy talking.
The guy.
Jason's complaining they want to play twiddle sticks in his backyard with all of his 80-year-old friends or something. You don't understand the youth, Jason. You don't understand.
Get it, Dad.
You don't get it. You don't understand me, Father. Well, everybody.
Oh, can I just say one thing real quick? I
Yes.
think this Rooster Teeth kind of fizzling out and dying like this also reflects a topic that we talked about. Was it last week or the week before about Vice?
Yes.
I think that they very much mirror each other. The internet changed. They didn't change as well with it, or at least not as quickly or well as they should have or could have. And it just left them behind. I think there's a major aspect of that too. Because at one point in time, Rooster Teeth was, I mean, they were a powerhouse. I mean, people were really amazed at how they were able to have this kind of following and attract the youths. And
they were everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, and this will probably cross over in many ways with the next topic, because all of this is culture war nonsense, and they've all were involved, and they all got their hands in the same cookie jar. So everybody, guess what? World War II's return, Gamergate 2.0 is back, everybody. Yay. If it's not for a geopolitical drama happening where people are constantly talking about the possibility of World War III, guess what? The war that tore the internet apart, 2013, 2014, called Gamergate, is back once again. It's trending on Twitter. Everybody's talking about Gamergate 2.0. We're back, everybody. Jason was there for the first conflict. We were we weren't influential, but we were on the sidelines shooting people from the side and not hitting anyone.
We definitely weren't neutral Switzerland in this case.
We were not. That being said, is it Gamergate without Anita? I think thematically and symbolically, it is Gamergate in a similar way, where it's a culture war about the drama that's going on. Anita married herself or something a year or two ago. I don't know. She's got her own things going on.
She pulled a Rodman?
Well, no, she had a really awkward birthday party. I can't remember when it was, a year or two ago, where she, at her birthday party, she dressed up in a wedding dress. Like, I don't know.
That just smacks of desperation right there.
Sure. Thanks for joining us, Toasty. So I'm going to do this as judiciously as I can, and address the Gamergate issue as objectively as I can. So, what is Gamergate? Now, it depends on who you ask, because if you search on the internet, it's either a concerted harassment campaign to attack feminists and inclusivity in the video game world, or it's consumers angry about incestuous relationships between the media and video game developers, pushing their own things, pushing their own agendas, and getting their own stuff through. In reality, it's probably in between the two. And that's the stupid part, because everybody needs to weigh in some strong, deliberate direction where one's awful and one's not. So here's the thing. How far back do we go with this Gamergate explanation? So it probably starts quite a far back with the gaming space. See, the weird part about video games in and of themselves and video game reporting media is that video game reporting media is reporting on a product. Unlike, let's say, normal news, where news is talking about news events, both international and national, politics, candidates, whatever you want to do. Gaming media is deliberately talking about a product that people consume from $1 million and sometimes $1 billion companies. And so when you're addressing things like gaming media, you can't divest the fact that there's a whole industry of media reporting solely based off of companies that want to earn money. It can start largely with Brianna Wu. I'm not as knowledgeable of her situation, so I'm going to go through the what's her name now that my mind blanks because I'm off of my
Anita Sarkeesian?
No, the other one.
Or no, the other
third
one. Yeah, what's her name?
See, this is why I hate
Zoe
trivia
Quinn.
games, Silver. Zoe Quinn.
Zoe Quinn.
For a lot of people, Gamergate got clocked into our brains when Zoe Quinn enters the arena. Now, Zoe Quinn enters the arena. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think that there's, like you were saying, it starts way before this. The thing is that...
It does. There are a lot of smaller events that sort of brought this into it. But
yeah, but the thing is that there was kind of, like you were saying, there was that incestuous relationship between gaming and reporting on gaming that existed, and it was kind of a you scratch my back, I scratch yours situation. That was going on for a lot longer than we may have known about, and it wasn't until
a lot
Brianna
longer
Wu
before
and
the Zoe Quinn stuff.
And Zoe Quinn got involved. It's just that it came out that this was happening because of them.
The biggest sort of drama that happened that ever registered on a lot of people's radar, particularly ours, when we were doing this podcast way back in the day, is Zoe Quinn. Allegations were leveled against her by her ex that because she was cheating on him with game developers, with game reporters that were reporting on her game called it's more complicated than that. Game reporters that were reporting on her game called Depression Quest and giving it favorable reviews and whatnot. Now, this happened before, well, not the sleeping with people. This happened before with stuff like IGN, where IGN had a problem with the Kane and Lynch situation, where IGN was giving Kane and Lynch like 10 out of 10s. And in the process of having massive ads for Kane and Lynch on their flipping website, while accepting money from the developers of Kane and Lynch, and then giving it just 10 out of 10 reviews, and it was absurd. Zoe Quinn is getting a lot of attention, and basically the accusation is she was sleeping her way into getting good reviews and attention for her game that she had made called Depression Quest. He originally wrote it as it was like 4 or 5 developers that she was sleeping with to get attention. In reality, she was sleeping with like 2 truckloads of people. 5 of them happened to be reporters. So she was definitely promiscuous on the one end.
Yikes.
And this causes a huge firestorm of people pointing fingers about the relationship between game developers and the people that reporting it aren't reporting it honestly. And
this is
there were a lot of people acting like victims, particularly Zoe Quinn. Brianna Wu's weighing in on everything and fighting the culture war from her perspective and pushing back. And to be fair to them, despite the fact there were legitimate complaints about the fact that they had a inappropriate relationship with people who were supposed to be sort of split from what they were doing. I'm phrasing that correctly, but you know what I'm talking about. Despite that, the attacks from trolls on the internet and 4chan and DDoSing and challenge, basically calling for them to delete themselves and all of that did happen. That was
completely inappropriate
and was grossly inappropriate. And so when all of the media sort of rallied around themselves, offended by the accusations of corruption, they also had legitimate complaints that basically a massive amount of trolls were throwing stones and making their lives miserable. And Brianna Wu was right in responding to that. She was right in how bad it was. She has had interesting reflections if you watch some videos recently, where she basically said how she responded wasn't constructive and she could have done things a lot differently to make the situation better. It very fairly introspective sort of reflection on her part. So, good on her. In the midst of all of this as well, you have somebody called Anita Sarkeesian. Anita Sarkeesian came into it through this very feminist perspective, trying to change gaming media because of bad hiring practices, was something Brianna Wu had huge accusations about, as well as sexism in gaming, where women are portrayed as sex objects and men are portrayed as large muscular men who have to save the women. It's sort of the cliche complaint that you hear about Disney and whatnot. My perspective on Anita Sarkeesian is perhaps a lot more negative than most people's would be. She talked a lot about how, all these video games I play, there's this famous picture of her sitting in front of stacks of video games. And then you can find interviews later where she talks about how she never played video games or knew anything about them before she got into the whole activism state. And I think by and large, her purpose and her goal in this space was activism. Whether you agreed with it or not, that's what she was there to do. And she got huge amounts of money through Patreon to create the Feminist Frequency series about sexism in video games, produced only a couple of videos, took all of that money, and then traveled around the world and did whatever she wanted to. Didn't produce anything for her Patreons. Look, despite the fact I disagree with her vehemently, politically, or disagree with her personally, if she takes money from people, she has a responsibility to produce the content that they gave
she
her
got
money
paid for.
Whether or not I agree with the content, she should be producing the content and then make her arguments that she disagrees with what's been happening with video games, that she deems it sexist. And you know what? Women have been portrayed in sexist ways and have not in other situations. I'm open to any sort of product because as long as it sells, the consumer should win. And if the consumer doesn't like said product, it won't sell. But, that's the hardcore capitalist in me. Anything I'm missing there, Jason, as we're moving through?
The only thing I can really, there's two things
we were
I can add
for all of
right
this
here.
happening.
Yeah, one like upshot that came out of this was that now content creators have to say that they're being paid for whatever they're doing.
They should have done this from the beginning.
Yes,
from the beginning. Conflicts of interest should always be addressed out the get-go. Why?
Oh yeah.
And the problem with gaming media is because they're reporting on products and they get access, they get attention, they get games pre-release so that they can review them. It's almost like the same situation you get in Hollywood, where a lot of reviewers in Hollywood don't want to cross sort of the big boys like Disney, because if you cross them and give a negative review, you lose access, and access is valuable. And that's the problem with a lot of stuff in media overall is there's a potential for bias, even if they're not accepting money directly, they're accepting access, and access is addicting. It gets you in the door, it gets you special passes, and that is a problem that probably still persists today.
Yeah, the thing is that you want your reviewers to be honest about your product. Because the thing is that if you have a problem with your product, if your reviewer says, hey, dude, there's a problem with this, that is a good idea for you to go back and maybe retool your product and fix the problems that it has and maybe make the product better, because that's only going to benefit you and the consumer. However, the current model for making video games is so broken. I mean, how many games have we seen recently where they come out and there's an enormous patch first day to make the game even playable? I mean,
every game has a massive patch. Every game has a massive patch open, but not to get too far off of the topic. So Gamergate had this massive cascading effect across the internet. It was a huge pushback by people that were unhappy with what was happening in gaming, that was unhappy with how things were reported. And they were by and large, people were expressing their discomfort with sort of a movement to affect the industry behind the scenes, so to speak.
Yeah.
Where everything was sort of, this is going to sound conspiratorial. This is my observation through viewing it. Things were moving left behind the scenes through influence through companies and investors and people entering the space who were activists. And a lot of that was also the influence from the pushback. But the problem is the pushback came from immature, stupid children who had a legitimate complaint that the products they consume are no longer, they don't like it, and they don't like the relationships that are going on. And you got a lot of really immature activity that was inappropriate and gross beyond belief. It could be said, once again, we're not strictly a political podcast, despite the fact that we might talk about the culture war and what have you. And we hate things. By political, we're not going to talk about like, oh, Donald Trumpler and Biden, that sort of thing. But it could be linked, theoretically, that the movement of Gamergate can be tangentially linked to the culture war shift that eventually created Mr. Drumpfler. It's not an illegitimate point to make. That basically the culture war pushback happened on the internet and it spread like a wildfire. Was it all Gamergate people that created Drumpfler? No. But it is a definite linchpin moment in the culture. And this then changed. And this led to things like woke and SJW and Me Too, that all of these massive culture war battles that existed on the internet had a big originating moment with Gamergate. And it spread to a lot of other places of people trying to reassert things that they controlled or trying to push back against things they disliked on both sides. Here we come to what we discussed.
I was going to add one. I was going to add one other thing. One thing that people tend not to recognize in this situation is that the trolls that came out of the woodwork in this case were a very vocal minority. But their
I don't know how
behavior
to classify
was
the minority. That's true. Their behavior was gross. The only reason why I interrupted is because it's hard to classify who was, because it's like a lot of people like had issues with it, but disagreed with what was being done. And it's hard to tell how, because you could do a lot with like a handful of very motivated.
I mean, we may not know exactly the numbers, but I would say that it was a very vocal minority of gamers that were guilty of these very atrocious behaviors that put basically all of us in a very bad light. They're like, oh, you guys, it's that the toxic fandom, as they say.
Yes.
You know.
Well, and so weirdly, the Gamergate thing had people rallying around large corporations and $1 million companies and developers and whatnot against consumers. Against consumers. And it's like, so you're going to side with the big companies? Okay. I mean, that's fine. I mean, you don't have to pick a side. And you had this strange anomaly that existed at that time where everybody had to weigh in on the Gamergate situation, for or against. What was your opinion?
Yeah.
And this attitude existed later in things like the BLM riots and the Antifa and stuff, where it's like, you can't be silent. You have to pick a side in this war. You have to pick a side. You have to carry a banner. Why don't you put the black box on your Instagram page? This is all precursor to creating this sort of event that cascades across the internet and sets the tone for accusations of racism, accusations of sexism, going after people. Cancel culture is a huge part to come out of this. And it was a part of, and this resulted in the death of an individual who deleted himself. We all forget that Zoe Quinn weighing in on things and throwing accusations resulted in someone passing.
And you know, amen to the guy who said, that both sides were horrible. Then both sides piled on him. You know what I mean?
To address, perhaps Jason could address this. If the only people represented is that toxic vocal minority, then how would you change the perception that the majority endorse or aren't bothered by those actions of the minority?
Well, I would say that we were bothered by the actions of the minority, and there were people that came. There were people that came out and said, "We don't condone this. This is atrocious behavior." But it seemed to me that when people came out and said, "Look, there's atrocious behavior on both sides, and this needs to stop," like I said, both sides piled on that person, and then you started getting backlash from the people who are like, "You should be supporting us because you're a gamer, or you should be supporting us because the gamers are toxic." And it was a no-win situation.
Well, and it's like, because of the nature of it, you had to embrace one extreme or the other. There was no sort of mitigating factors or reasonable perspectives on it.
Yeah.
The thing is, Brianna Wu had a fair point when hiring practices in the gaming developing world were negative towards women. She had a fair point, which was expressed poorly when she weighed into the conflict. But she was right, and the negative responses and the calls for people to self-delete and the de-doxing, all of that was wrong and inappropriate, and it made the legitimate points people might be making get drowned out by the really awful behavior.
Yeah.
And so it really just became a crap throwing fest of crap hitting the fan, and everybody dislikes each other. Like I said, in reality, what we're probably looking at is something that's probably closer to a more middle perspective. Both sides had some fair points to make, but the industry had gotten away with stuff for way too long. Go ahead.
On the one hand, the gamers were irate because they were getting sold products that were not good, because the developers were basically in bed with the media, and then but the gamers on their side, they weren't entirely without fault, because you had that, like I said, that vocal minority who were being super atrocious in their behavior towards these people. There was fault on both sides. How do you then say, look, this is what we need to do, and how do you have a reasonable conversation when both sides are being so hateful towards each other?
Well,
unfortunately, that's kind of what we're dealing with in everything else today.
Well, right, and in many ways, Gamergate didn't stop, because it sort of just continued with the whole
it
SJW,
has,
woke, cancel culture. It just kept going in less gaming specific, but more general political cancel culture, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it just kept going and became toxic in different ways, became more strictly political as opposed to strictly about gaming.
I want to
we're going to
address Toasty. Yeah, want to address Toasty real quick. I probably haven't answered your question, and I apologize for that.
Oh, do you want to readdress it then, or what?
No, I don't really have a good answer to that.
Perfect answer for it. Okay, that's fair.
No.
So the reason why this is brought up is because the conflict has returned. Get hyped. War is back upon us. Gamergate 2.0 is trending. Why is Gamergate 2.0 trending? Once again, because we talked about last week with the Sweet Baby Inc. fiasco. Basically, they're treating this like, hey, the culture war's back on. Gaming is fighting again. And with Sweet Baby Inc., there have been people picking sides. You have seen gaming news sites weigh in on this, trying to defend Sweet Baby Inc. You've had people throwing accusations. Sweet Baby Inc. completely pulled their social media from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, what have you. Once again, we are going to vehemently say that anybody attacking or going after individuals is grossly inappropriate. You shouldn't do it, and I denounce it wholeheartedly. DDoXing and stuff is wrong. Asking people to self-delete is wrong. Once again. But once again, this is a topic of there's manipulation going on in the gaming space. Now we addressed it superficially, and much to the accusations of places like Kotaku, where they are showing and basically claiming that the people talking about Sweet Baby Inc. are sort of drawing conspiracy lines in their echo chambers, all high-fiving and agreeing with one another and not cross-conversationally. I'm going to address this. This is going down the conspiracy area, and it's going to get slightly political, not in the I dislike one political candidate. But this is something that happens and is happening in the corporate world. So you have companies like Vanguard and BlackRock. These are massive corporations, and if you do investing, which I do, you see their hand in a lot of things. What they do is they essentially invest large amounts of money in different companies to affect those companies in different ways, to either earn money or affect the social climate or whatever. And these companies, Vanguard and BlackRock, have a political agenda. There's an interview, I didn't pull it up, where the head of BlackRock is talking at the World Economic Forum, saying that things are moving in the right direction, but that they're not moving fast enough, and we need to force these things to move in the right direction. So what does he mean by force these things to move in the right direction? There's a thing that exists in corporate America right now called DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is essentially the thing that gives you credit points that encourages
it's the new
investors.
version of It's the new version of what's it called? Dang it. Affirmative action.
The social credit system. Not really affirmative action, not necessarily. It's more like the social credit system. Not in these companies specifically, but I'm talking in general with BlackRock and Vanguard.
Right.
And why this influence is creating the DEI. I'm not talking specifically about Sweet Baby Inc. having investors from BlackRock. You are correct, they don't. The reason why I brought that up is because they're trying to encourage behavior. And encouraging behavior, they basically say you need to have certain things going on, encourage DEI practices that encourages investment from outside companies. And so gaming companies are told by these third-party companies like Sweet Baby Inc., hey, if you delve into these DEI practices, then it'll encourage investors, and it'll give you basically positive social credit points, so to speak. And deliberately, the head of Sweet Baby Inc. has an interview where she's actually saying that middle management people need to go to their heads and basically threaten them that if they don't hire third-party people to create this sort of more diversity, equity, inclusion, then it's going to cause problems with their company financially, as well as layoffs. And she says this deliberately. So this isn't a conspiracy. This is the intention. And the intention is to affect change in the gaming space and in companies and whatnot. And that's mostly what the backlash is towards Sweet Baby Inc. I'm going to say that if you want to make a game that has a political agenda, you're more than welcome to do so. You're more than welcome to do so.
Go for it. Do it.
And be very, very overt about it. What I have a disagreement with, which seems to be what sparked Gamergate 2.0, is the deliberate influence behind the scenes to deliberately weigh in and then enforce change and then bully people into trying to affect this political agenda into their gaming companies. Lest we forget a game that crashed and burned, Suicide Squad. Half of the writers on Suicide Squad were Sweet Baby Inc. employees. And I don't care. Look, I don't like what's going on. I don't like the conspiracy. I don't like the background. I don't like the reasoning for everything that's going on. But if they want to do this, they're more than welcome to. They're free private companies, and they definitely can do these things. I don't like it going on in the background in shady ways. That just be very overt. This is our agenda. This is what we're trying to do. And that's like, okay. And then I can make a decision based upon what I want and what I don't want. But clearly the intention seems to be that it's trying to force things in a political direction through coercion. And that's what sparked the whole drama with so-called Gamergate 2.0. It seems to be less vitriolic, but it has driven Sweet Baby Inc. out. And if in a way, I would call this lobbyist in its own way to affect the problem with these companies is they have agendas and they're trying to affect change in culture, and culture is downstream from politics. And so if you have money and you have political intention to affect national and global change, you're going to go through culture first to adjust culture in a way that you think it should be done. I would have issues, whether or not you believe it or not, I would have issues if these things were happening in the background from weird conservative groups. I'd be like, why are you trying to insert Jesus into my DC Comics video game? Like for some reason, Harley Quinn hangs out in the background and be like, embrace Jesus and accept your savior. And I'd be like, whoa, Harley Quinn, whoa.
That's just weird.
but in a similar vein, this is sort of the war that's been restarted, I guess. At least the internet wants to think that Gamergate 2.0 has returned. And there are similarities where it's like, oh, well, drama happening, blah, blah, blah. You're lying to yourself if this hasn't been going on for a while, and you're lying to yourself that this isn't going to keep going on. My prediction of Sweet Baby Inc. is they'll probably go away and either turn into a different company where they're all basically the same people, but different people are in charge. Oddly enough, there are people who worked with Anita Sarkeesian who were also in Sweet Baby Inc. So these are all crossovers in weird, complex ways. I don't want to get too conspiratorial. Toasty says, but the money is just the expression of a culture without that company. So if enough support goes to those companies, how is that not just the reflection of the populace? Well,
that would be correct.
It would be the reflection of the populace.
Want it to happen.
Well, no, Jason, wait. It would be the reflection of the populace, basically based on these games don't do well because the people that buy them don't want them. Hence the crashing of Suicide Squad.
That's what I'm saying. What I was saying is,
if gaming companies, give me a second to finish my thought. If gaming companies want to do this, they're more than welcome to. And if they have consumers that desire said product, then they are successful and they're more than welcome to go down that route. My problem is the behind the scenes, and the money being expressed as a reflection of the populace is not the populace in general, the general consumers, the general sort of voters with their money. That it is large multi-conglomerate corporations exerting influence on their own. So what you're getting is the political expression of elitists, not the general population. And the expectation is, there was an interview I saw between Big Fat Otaku, and he talked to one of the developers of Saints Row, the remake, so to speak. And he said that behind the scenes, his bosses were saying, this is going to get us a lot of money. It's going to get us investors. This is going to be really popular. There is that it's like the influence of wanting to push it in a different direction. And there's the influence of people genuinely having an agenda. Just make the game there's a game that came out, the guy who unfortunately self-deleted during the whole drama with Gamergate, who made it was that point and click sort of adventure game, A Night in the Woods. By all accounts, it's a good game and it's fairly left-leaning politically. Like, great. I love that. But you would have weird issues if somehow you found out Elon Musk is behind the scenes trying to like force them to change politics, and like that's scummy and weird, and I don't care for it. You've had fair points, Toasty, and I appreciate your comments. Jason?
My point was that I don't like that there are other companies that are trying to force this change on other companies. That is despicable and wrong. But what I was saying is that if the money is coming from the consumers and the consumers are buying those products, I'm totally fine with that. That is, like she was saying, that is a reflection of the populace. But what they're trying to do is these companies like Sweet Baby Inc., they're trying to force the change at the corporate level rather than at the cultural level. So they're saying, look, we're going to force you.
Demanded for.
Right, but they're like, they're pushing this DEI thing, and they're saying, look, you need to make your games so that they have these political things in them so that the people will get this message. Well, all that's happening is the people are saying no.
Well, that's the rub, isn't it?
They're
want
voting
to affect
with their
culture.
money.
It's that political maneuvering, the tactic of the top down. You want to basically control media and culture and stuff, and then have it cascading down throughout the people consuming said product.
Right.
As opposed to sort of bottom up,
working.
where it's like the products are being dictated by the desires of the consumer, so to speak. We don't get,
but
this has gone way political. Well, it should be. Yeah. We've gone way political theorist on this, and it's not necessary. But Gamergate 2.0 has happened again, and it was at least superficially valid to go through the drama that has happened and comment on it. I've done my best to sort of divest myself from personal opinion of what's going on. If I'm going to be honest with my personal opinion, it's all bullshit, and I hate how they've influenced games. They've made them bad.
Oh, yeah.
The writing is bad. The politics is bad. Like, why? I mean, it's fine to have politics, but it used to be more subtle and it used to be less in your face. There's stuff that's more left wing. I happen to be more right wing that I consume because it's like BioShock. I love BioShock. BioShock's a great game. It has left leaning politics in it, but it's not so, well, yeah. It gets worse by BioShock Infinite, which is a piece of garbage.
It's not in your face telling you you're a piece of garbage if you don't follow along with their point of view.
Well, right, and talking down to me, and yeah, it's nonsense, and I hate all of this political nonsense that has affect everything. Skittles doesn't have to weigh in on the culture war. Coca-Cola doesn't have to weigh in on the culture war, but apparently silence is violence, and everybody has to weigh in on everything and has to be a part of it and has to be influenced by it, and it's bullcrap. We need to stop having this perpetual fight where we don't talk to each other and everybody has to pick a side. Look, if you want to make the game you want to make, then make the game you want to make your artistic vision and then sell it and then get people to consume said product. But don't get indifferent when people go, I hate this and I don't like it and I don't want to give you money. I'm constantly beating the drum when stuff comes out. Well, I'm constantly beating the drum when stuff comes out that changes stuff I love, like Marvel and DC and whatnot. Products I love that are moving in a political direction I disagree with. Do I go out and try and cancel the product? No. Do I go out and protest in front of the movie theaters? No. Do you know what I do, which is the most effective thing that anybody can do when it comes to supporting or not supporting things they like or dislike? I vote with my wallet. I don't go to the movie. Yep. I don't consume their product. I don't buy their games. That's how you influence things when you don't like something. But for some reason, there's this expectation, well, it's a Spider-Man game. Everybody has to buy the Spider. If it looks bad, don't buy it. I love Spider-Man. He's literally like my top two like favorite characters. But the number 2 looked bad, so I didn't purchase it. I wasn't sitting here going out, this is SJW woke bullshit and this is nonsense. They are ruining Spider-Man, and guess what I did? I didn't buy it. I didn't buy the Toasty responds and says, well, I don't think you can do this without politics. You're right. When I say politics, I'm talking politics in the Republican Democrat political nonsense. Everything's political for some reason. Everything. To quote Anita Sarkeesian, everything's racist, everything's sexist, and you have to point it all out. And anyway, he goes on to say, the individual goes on to say, and I think the request for less political media comes from a political belief that is waning. You're probably right. You're probably right. The trend is moving into a very polarizing direction. Just need a Patreon scan to be official. I didn't get that joke. What was that joke?
I'm not entirely sure, but probably it needs to have like a Patreon so that people can go in and start giving money to Gamergate. Make it official.
Yeah. That's probably true. Anyway, Ross, you have any reflections after my belligerence?
No, I hate all of it. That's why I stopped playing games for a long time, because I could give a rat's ass. It's just so stupid.
No, you have to pick a side. You have to join the front lines, and you have to start slinging crap and de-doxing people. This is how we have to conduct ourselves. Not respectable human beings having discussions and disagreeing. Pick a side,
Yeah.
Ross.
Nah, I'm good.
I am going to punch you
like
in
I
the
used
grundle.
To.
What?
Oh,
You're not
grundle.
overly.
I need that.
You're not overly dramatic and passionate about very minor things and getting upset.
No, because like the thing is, I mean, like even games that I love that didn't go down, like that didn't have any of this even sent remotely on them. Like they all die anyway for various other reasons. So it's like, like yeah, this is really stupid and it's creepy and on every front, these Omega nerds freaking out and getting really overly vitriolic online is awful, and then then people on the other side of it like are not making it any better and being just as bad but in their own way. Like it just depends on like, I find it really interesting that Brianna Wu, I did not know that because I don't keep up with any of this. Like I did early on, but I quit because I just whatever. So like a decade on, it's really interesting to hear that she kind of has reflected on it and goes like, man, things could have gone better. And
yeah, that commentary
great.
was from a Tim Pool episode she was on.
She went on a Tim Pool? Wow.
Yeah, I don't know.
Wow, that's really shocking, actually.
That's where that comment, she said, like, what I did was unproductive and I could have done better. She basically said my energies would have been better directed towards, like, helping programs that were encouraged to help women into developing in video game spaces to help change things. But the funny thing is, as she points out, the work environment has gotten just even more awful with overworked individuals in development anyway.
Yeah, the industry's moved in a weirder place.
Yeah, it's become awful and everyone's overworked and underpaid and all of it's a problem. All of it's a problem. Silver, as the resident female cat Godzilla monster, how do you feel as a woman about all of these topics about women in gaming and the toxicity? What do you think there, champ?
I was pretty much new to the whole Gamergate conversation, so I was learning along the way here. But yeah, I think there's definitely some games that definitely do portray women wrongly, and you could say like, that's weird. But I think it also depends on the game. Like
Wait,
what
you
I
don't
heard
like
about
overly
was
sexualized women?
Me personally, no, I don't.
Oh. All right.
So, but like I forget what it was, an Assassin's Creed game. I think it was Black Flag or something. And I forget the YouTuber's name. I remember watching him talking about it. How a lot of people were complaining that there were women in the game who were overly sexualized in it. But based on the time period, those women in it were prostitutes.
Yes, trumpets are definitely a thing in the 1600s Caribbean.
Yeah, and so it just makes sense for that time period,
it's always annoying when they put something in a game, and it could be that they put that in a game in order to be able to put that in a game. You know what I mean? It's like we want to have these over sexualized characters. Well, how do we put that in the setting? But the thing is that this was a pirate game, you know, and you had pirates in the Caribbean. You had these, ladies of dubious virtue, as they were sometimes called.
Well, way to make the most passive comments.
That is appropriate.
They're a hooer. It's a hooer.
But the
hooer, Tony.
Well, and then men are overly sexualized. It's like, oh, an unrealistic depiction of women in games. And it's like, aren't all the guys overly jacked and like huge and ripped abs?
Yes.
And like, isn't that also an unrealistic
body fat?
Silver.
That same YouTuber I was just talking about was making comments on like the over sexualized women in that Assassin's Creed game. He also made a good argument with what you said. He said at the same time there's those women in there, but there's also a bunch of guys there that he's like, you could argue that they're also being stereotyped because they're like these big brawny guys. And I think those characters are used to, you can like pay the money to go distract someone in the game. So that's what those like big guys also do. He's like, yeah, they're also being stereotyped. It's not just the women.
One of the things that I think people forget about video games is that this is a fantasy. And this is me injecting myself into the story with my character. It's like I want to be the best, strongest hero there is. It's like there was so much backlash against what's her name from Horizon, the new Horizon game, when they're like, yeah, she's kind of ugly. It's like,
well, they made her more plain, I guess.
Yeah, they really could have avoided that if they'd made her more attractive. But at that point in time, it would have been like, if they made her more attractive, there would have been some other people that have been like, oh, you just made her attractive because you're trying, you're over sexualizing. It's like, no, this is not necessarily the reason it's being done. The reason it's being done is to promote that fantasy. And if you destroy that fantasy, then you're going to get backlash. But if you persist in the fantasy, if you don't necessarily make it integral to your game, you just make it a part of the game, then you're actually going to have a better game. The people are going to be able to immerse themselves in it better. The people are going to be able to, because it's part of that fantasy. It's part of being this character that you're not. It's you're playing into that fantasy that this is.
You can have
me,
both.
But better.
You can have both. You can have created
can.
characters that reflect you, or more realistic body types, or more realistic facial features. Or in some games where you have a central story and a central character that you've picked deliberately, they're kind of a paragon. They're aspiring to, rather than a reflection of, sort of a normal person. When you play a game with Captain America doesn't come out all frumpy. It's like he's a paragon. He exemplifies like a more perfected form of man. The ultimate American, so to speak. And you can have both. Like neither has to be anything. What I disagree with is when you have sort of the idea of superheroes are supposed to be sort of exemplars of things, and then you try and bring them down to a more simplified level. It's like, well, I can't relate with the character. You're not supposed to. I can't relate with Batman. He's a psycho. I mean, I'm psychotic in a different way, but I can't relate with Superman. Now, there are human traits that give him humanity, that make me understand him, his values, maybe sort of like I can't relate with anybody. It's like I'm disconnected from normal man, but I'm trying to, like, there are human characteristics that you can relate with the character, but there's not a one-for-one understanding. I don't understand him perfectly. He's like a god. Like, he can do whatever he wants to.
Seriously. But at that point, you're playing into the fantasy, and you're playing into that I want to be this god among humans. I want to be this person, and so you're letting the players have that fantasy.
Okay, well, we have gotten bogged down in this topic. Let's bring up some other things that I have pulled up on the queue. Hopefully that is not showing the window capture. I'm looking for this one. No. Maybe remove. This is really good content, everybody.
Best.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we're having a little bit of issue because we're trying to figure out what you're doing.
Well, I'm going to
help.
try and bring up a video so we can react to it. Ross had a chance to. Don't shame me.
Let me have fun.
This is perfectly produced. Actually, I'm gonna. No, Kevin James, you get out of there. Friggin' your Zookeeper is terrible.
The best movie ever made. What do you mean? What?
No, that
Flawless
was
film.
Paul Blart Mall Cop.
Paul Blart Mall.
So good, it got a sequel.
Yeah, it did. Even better.
You don't know how long a conversation me and Ross had about Paul Blart Mall Cop and Zookeeper.
The mall coppening.
All right, I'm gonna. We're gonna react
movie.
to something. We're gonna react to something that Zack Snyder had to say on Mr. Rogan's podcast.
I don't hear it.
I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah,
You weren't hearing anything? Well, you could super
No.
say something as
I
opposed to
did.
sit there quietly.
I
Well, I can't
did.
hear you. I'm listening to a video like an adult would.
Okay.
Oh, Rick gets to listen to the video.
Well, it's all about me. What would be... Or let me just reflect on what he comments on. We don't need to really super react to this. So essentially, Zack Snyder talks about making superhero movies and his opinion on it. And he talked about how he felt that Superman's or Batman's restriction on not being able to kill people is dumb. And when people say that the canon is Batman doesn't kill people, his initial response is he wants to see what happens if Batman kills people. And that putting restrictions like that on your gods is restricting them in a way that is harming the characters. And that's bullcrap. On top of that, he makes some other weird claims. You can react to that. Maybe I'll get the actual quote.
The thing is that I understand from an intellectual perspective what he's saying, but at the same time, it's like then you're not portraying Batman at that point.
Well, here, let me give
you
you a little bit more accurately. It's like Zack Snyder says DC is making Batman irrelevant if he can't kill. You're protecting your god in a weird way.
That's weird.
By having your character have a standard, I guess.
Have a moral compass? I mean, seriously, what makes Batman at this point better than any other psycho in Gotham City?
Well, he said that after reading stuff like Watchmen, it's hard to go back, and he's become pretty much a deconstructionist because Watchmen is inherently a deconstruction of superheroes, and he can't go back. It's like, okay, first of all, you can go back because I've read Watchmen and I still love classic superheroes, and all you're basically doing is you can't have a deconstruction if you haven't built up a standard. And he didn't build up a standard. He just made really shitty heroes. Like I don't know what more.
It just
Ross.
further gives credence to the fact that he's like a 13-year-old. I don't know. Like it's just so.
The thing is that you can have this deconstruction because Watchmen was great as far as that deconstruction goes. I totally enjoyed Watchmen, not necessarily the movie, comic.
Snake worshiper.
The movie had some good points. But anyway,
it's a deconstruction of superheroes.
I digress. Yeah, but the thing is that you can't do every superhero movie or comic or story or whatever as a deconstruction. That there's no point in doing every single one as a deconstruction. Why would we even have stories at that point if all you're going to do is do deconstructions?
Well, then the deconstruction would be having a Boy Scout kind of hero again.
Exactly.
Like,
so well, here's the problem with the new DC with James Gunn. He's doing a story. I'm really bad with remembering stuff. He's doing a story, Superman story, that's based off of an era where Superman's a lot older, and it's a bit of a deconstruction of Superman as the first movie for the character.
Oh God, they never learn.
No,
I mean, James Gunn did some good stuff, but with the new direction that they're taking the DC or the DC extended universe stuff in, yeah, it's not gonna work. He's gotten too much into the eclectic fringe groups in the DC comics and is thinking that that's going to be a good idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's even using the S from what was it, Superman Legacy, I think it is. But it's like Superman older reflecting on period of time being Superman. It's like what are we doing? We got to deconstruct everything again. We have to go through this whole drama again.
Absolutely.
Well, they're doing their own sort of like Watchmen story. It's a DC. I feel bad because I don't remember it because I passingly know about the story, but it's also like a cynical, like it's like, oh well, superheroes are bad sort of thing. He's also doing that story at the same time. Like that's a story you do 10 years after the first Superman is established. And you know, one of my biggest problems, I was talking they have this new show on Netflix called Damsel. Me and Ross were talking about it. It's like, I mean, make that movie if you want to. But basically it's like, oh, well, she's not the damsel in distress anymore. This time she saves herself and she's super awesome and badass and she could do everything. And then it's like, who are you talking to? You've deconstructed the damsel in distress, the Disney princess thing for so many decades now. Like who are you talking to? Somebody in the 40s? Like what movie is this trying to like push against? Like we've had nothing but like, well, she doesn't need a man anymore for the past like 30 years. And what are we talking about here? Oh, well, she doesn't need to be saved. It's like, who are you complaining to? Someone a long time ago? Because that's not the standard anymore.
The thing is that there's nothing wrong with a story where a damsel gets rescued.
Well, I mean, it's a classic traditional tale, but
yeah,
it's like trying to tear apart that story when that's not even the standard in the lexicon anymore. Anyway, that's like me going back and trying to make a movie upset about the 1912 election, and that's like, nobody cares.
Like, Red, he should have won. What do you mean? This is the most
Taft should have won.
They split the ticket.
He split the ticket, and it's unfair. And Teddy should have dropped out. If you didn't know, I wrote extensively and researched extensively on the 1912 election. Teddy should have dropped out because he had an issue that Taft wasn't continuing on with his political agenda of the new era of progressivism, and Taft didn't move in the direction Teddy wanted him to. And so Teddy returned to the election and split the ticket, and that's why Wilson won. Wilson wouldn't have won if Teddy hadn't have re-entered the election. Anyway, But it's like, why would I make a movie about that? No one cares. Like, this issue has been resolved. It's like me trying to be like, he should have won. We've moved on from this. Like, this isn't a thing anymore.
So bad.
The thing
100
is
years
that
later.
Go for it, Silver.
No, that was it.
Yeah.
The thing is I could totally see Hollywood making a movie about the 1912 election. I could totally see them doing that right now.
Well, it's not even the point of the 1912. Like, my point being that you're trying to retread things and readdress issues that no longer exist.
Right.
You know what would be counterculture at the moment to do a traditional Disney princess movie. That would be edgy.
It totally would.
And counterculture would to have a traditional princess being saved.
And you know what would happen? It would explode and Disney would rake in money again. That is my prediction.
They're not doing super well. That would be but it would justify the damsel movie as like a snidey, like, we don't like this. You know what I mean? Like, it would justify damsel, but no. When was the last like traditional damsel in distress movie? What are we talking, like 20 years ago?
Oh, yeah, seriously.
Probably.
Like, what is
before
this?
that?
Yeah. Because the closest I could think of is Entangled, but she's not really traditionally saved by a guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're both kind of bumbling.
Yeah. Brave isn't not
That's
remotely
the closest one, because Mulan isn't.
No, definitely not.
Like, granted, Mulan is completely inept before she meets the handsome Chinese general, Captain Man, who turns her into a soldier. But still, like, she saves the day.
She does save the day.
Aladdin kind of has a damsel in distress moment.
Probably Aladdin.
Yeah, probably Aladdin.
I mean, she's not the traditional mostly through it, but it has the closest to it when she's like kidnapped by Jafar in the end.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
You know what this reminds me of, kinda? It reminds me of how, like, if you ever watch old animated shows, like I'm talking like Tom and Jerry or even before that, you'll notice, like, the bad guys, when they come in, they're wearing, like, turtlenecks and bowlers. Even though, like, this show is in the 50s and that's not what bad guys looked like. It's because that's what tough guys looked like when the animators were little kids in, like, the early 1900s.
Yeah.
So I think it's the same thing. It's like people are remembering movies. Yeah, it's like people remembering movies from when they were a kid, and they're like, well, we're going to go against that. And it's like, people already have been. Like, they've been deconstructing that for a long time. Where you been?
We've moved on. Yeah.
Like, it's long gone, Chief. I don't know what to tell you.
I didn't play Silver's intro because I didn't switch out the video because I got caught up waiting for her to finish editing the thumbnail. So I'm gonna blame her.
Val.
We could do the worm. Shai Hulud is here.
Shai Hulud.
Hold
on.
No.
We don't have I dislike going much over 2 hours. We don't have a huge amount of time. We could do your game, or if there's something else we want to talk about and to save it for next week when you have a bit of time to settle into it. Whatever you want. Champ. Little camper.
I mean, I don't mind if we don't do the game. We can save that, but
okay. Well, is there anything you want to talk about in reflection of the current topic? How were women portrayed as our current lady? How are things going over there? What do you think about the culture?
Giant horrendous cat monster.
Are you super hyped for Damsel? Is this something up your radar?
I haven't even heard of that until you mentioned it.
Yeah, it's out on Netflix. It came out Friday. Hey, guess what? Shogun's still really good. Everybody should see it.
Unfortunately, in the climate that we're in right now, when I see things like that come up, I have a tendency to discount them because of the perception around it rather than this might be good. Maybe the story.
Jason,
I'm just like,
what do you mean? Unfortunately, you're literally voting with your wallet, and you're looking at it going, "This isn't for me." There's nothing wrong with that.
No,
if you look at a product that you go,
this
isn't for me, then move on.
But the thing is that it's almost like a knee-jerk reaction now, rather than I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. I'm looking into it to find out if I even like it. I see it and I'm like, oh nope, not for me.
Do you think
I don't even give it a chance anymore?
Well, here's the thing. You may be right in you're giving it a prejudgment without fairly sort of reviewing it. But I would argue it's not your responsibility to look at every romantic comedy and being like, you know what, I'm going to be fair to this movie. I'm going to give it it's just not for you. You're not interested. And the expectation is when stuff comes out that's clearly geared towards women, let's say the Marvels or whatever, and then men don't go and see it, then they're like, how could you? When the whole time they're in your face going, this movie's not for you. And then you go, okay, I won't see it. And then you don't go see it. And then they're like, how could you not see our movie? Well, it's like the expectation is you should be expected to. And you're not, you don't owe them your money in any way. Anyway,
no,
you don't have to see it.
The thing is that
time.
in the past, I would see a movie trailer or I would hear about a television show or something coming out, and I'd give it a more fair assessment, I think, than I do now. Now it's so much. There's so much garbage that's been coming down the pipes, and I don't even look at it. It's like, I know what you're trying to do here. It's not for me. Rather than, in maybe 10 years ago, if this Damsel had come out, I've been like, maybe this might be good. You know what I mean?
You think that's a reflection of the current culture, that you're prejudging things based upon where the culture's moving? Well, it's like me and Ross, we were going to sort of bring it up and maybe watch it, but since the audio's not working, there's the trailer for Fallout, the Amazon show that's coming out that looks like they spent a lot of money on.
Yeah, I saw that.
If I'm being fair, and I'll let Ross comment on it, it looks pretty good, but it's better than the previous one, but I don't trust them to do a good job. So I'm withholding whether or not it's worth even giving it a shot. Ross?
Yeah, I mean, this trailer looks a lot better than the first one that came out with the stupid Cyclops overseer. I have other issues with it. I think because look, Bethesda doesn't understand the story of Fallout or the world, so I really doubt Amazon Studios is going to get it. They didn't get Lord of the Rings, so I mean,
definitely not.
I really did not like Fallout 4 that much. The gameplay was fun. I hate the world they created. I hate the way they made it look. It's like comical and awful to look at. I think.
But you didn't like your little settlements constantly being under attack and having to deal with it?
I mean, that was another problem, yes. But like, even just how they designed the world to look, like it's like comically 1950s, and it's like the original Fallout didn't look like this. Like
a little more Mad Max and a less, exaggerated.
Yeah, it was a little bit more cassette futurism rather than full on like 1950s sci-fi futurism. But I don't know. Like that's nitpicky, I guess. But I have faith that it'll be better than I initially looked, but I'm not. Listen, they screwed up Lord of the Rings. That's a very easy type of story to make, and they couldn't do that. They did it so bad that even people who wanted to like it didn't like it. So I
have a proposition. Because I hate being one of those people, because me and Jason care about Lord of the Rings, Ross less, so Silver definitely cares about Lord of the Rings. There's the grift where people go and watch stuff just to crap on it so that they can create content.
Right.
I didn't watch Rings of Power because I watched everything about Rings of Power and I was like, this isn't for me. So I didn't give it my money or my time. But if we are going to review it, I may have to, through threat of violence, force everybody to watch the show.
I'll watch it with you. Yeah. I'll watch
because to be fair to the show, we have
Dragging
to
myself
see
through a
it.
broken glass.
Yeah, but to be fair
What
to
if
the
it's
show, we
good?
have to see it if we're going to review it. All right. So we have to consume said product if I'm going to give it a fair review. I can't sit here and go, oh, the Marvel's a piece of trash. By all accounts, it's a piece of trash, but I haven't seen it, so I'm not giving you my opinion. I'm reflecting opinions of all the other people that have seen it that I've consumed their content of.
My opinion is that everything I've seen about the Marvels is that it's going to be a terrible movie, and it will be the equivalent of sanding my eyeballs just to watch it.
So if you think it'll be entertaining,
I can tell you
that's no good.
Well, Silver has the habit of seeing every piece of garbage that comes out because Daddy Godzilla loves watching movies.
Oh, Papa Godzilla.
How's it feel, Seth?
So yes, that may be a thing because it's coming. The season 2 is coming this year, so we may have to sit down and season 1 the crap out of it, building up to season 2.
Yeah.
Solely for the sake of this podcast, not because I'm interested in consuming said media. But that being said, any reflections you want to leave us with? I'm going to start with Silver. What have you got? What are you thinking about, champ? Buckaroo. Little
Tiger. Sport.
Ant lizard.
I'll just let you keep going.
Lizard monster. Well, what was that thing I used to do where I would send you a
Buckaroo.
text where it was like, it'd be like, bro. It's like, what's up going on, bro? And you're like, what? And I was like, what's going on, Broheim? Brohammer, Broseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh, yeah. Just keep going.
I just keep doing it until you get really annoyed with me.
I'll be like, what's happening?
Stop it. What are you thinking about? What do you got? And this was something inspiring.
Oh, gosh. I got nothing,
This is
though.
gonna change lives. What she's gonna say. It's gonna change everybody. Save the world.
I got nothing.
Save the world. Save the world. So
Sorry.
okay, so the world is doomed.
I can't save the world.
Appreciate
It's
it.
my
We're all dead.
Tokyo.
Thank you, Val.
Super appreciate it, champ. Bucky.
Listen, Buckaroo, I'm not going to lie to you. You failed us.
You failed us. The world is doomed.
I'm good at that. I'm good at that, so in my own mind, I succeeded.
Ross, what's going on, champ?
Well, sport. I don't know. Like, I'm kind of excited to watch this Fallout show with everybody. So if it's good, it'll be nice. It won't be, so I'm excited to see where it goes.
Oh, hype! Did you like that Zack Snyder in the Joe Rogan podcast claimed that more people saw what is it, Rebel Moon than saw Barbie?
Well, because it's true. He wouldn't lie.
Yeah.
Why would you lie about that?
He claimed that more people saw Rebel Moon that no one talks about than Barbie.
Oh man, such a deluded individual.
What an
By the
absurd
way,
lie.
At my local Walmart establishment, they had a little section, an end cap, I believe is what they call it, where they have set up some Rebel Moon merch. And every time I walk by it, I don't think a damn one of those things has moved an inch. So I don't know what the hell he's talking about, but okay, sure, bud.
No one's consuming product.
No, I think we sold more of that stupid pink sauce at that Walmart. I think more of that gets sold out of there.
Man.
So there you
Jason?
go. I think that's that.
I'm a fan of old movies. Been watching some old movies recently, and I gotta say that it just seems to me that the caliber of stars that they used to turn out is so much higher than we have today. Anyway, that's it for
watching
me.
Cowboy Bebop, I was moved because Cowboy Bebop's my literal favorite anime, and I was moved about how well developed the characters were, how about they have personalities, that they have both positive and negative traits, that they're fleshed out, And I was like, oh my gosh, I've been missing good storytelling. Oh, it touches my heart. It's so good.
Oh,
I'm not just talking about
now.
that, but like I was watching a movie called Cover Girl with Rita Hayworth and Gene Kelly.
Well,
and I was
that's
just
because
thinking,
you're 87 and
yeah.
My God.
But I was just thinking, like, they had to dance, they had to sing, they had to play an instrument, they had to be able to act. You know, there was there was just so much more to it than just they have a pretty face.
the Renaissance man, so to speak.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they gave him a lot of meth for that too, by the way. There's a lot of pet pills going into those
Stop
people.
destroying our heroes, Ross. Stop tearing down classic Hollywood. They were all pure. Nothing inappropriate happened. What are you talking about?
Definitely not to the children.
Yeah.
Definitely
Not
don't learn
to-
about what happened to
What's her name? Garland, Judy Garland.
Judy Garland, and then watch Wizard of Oz. It won't make you sad at all. Definitely won't.
Well, way to leave the podcast in a positive note.
Oh, but speaking of film, real quick, should we talk about? The Academy Awards are coming up. Just throwing that out there. In fact, in one day. So
okay, well, we'll reflect on it. Well, we might comment on it. The problem is I don't. Well, here's the thing. I don't care what they have.
I was going to say, the problem is I've seen none of it, so.
Like, I'm not really that interested.
On a positive note.
Yeah. The Academy Awards used to be a show about celebrating the best movies that came out. Now it's just celebrating mediocrity or worse.
Oh, it's always been about them patting themselves on the back.
Oh yeah,
a bunch of elitists I'm not telling everybody.
I'm not saying
better,
that, but at least the movies that they used to give the awards to were actually good movies.
Yes, well, we're going down the road again of back in my day, everything was better, and everything's terrible now.
Get off my
the
lawn.
young people. No. Silver, your generation has ruined everything.
But wait, I
And
can
I'm-
leave us off on a positive note here of what you
Okay.
all want.
Go for it.
Oh, Jason wants to watch Star movies once again. Wants characters with actual personalities. And now we're gonna watch Rings of Power, which has all of that. The Rings of Power 2. The Ringening.
The
Ringening. The official title
so
of season
excited.
2.
Yes,
Get hyped,
Rings
all.
of Power 2.
In all likelihood, playing
Sounds
Final
like a
Fantasy
Christmas
VII
movie
will.
about bells.
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is going to continue for me, and so is finishing Cowboy Bebop. I'm loving all of it. But we're going to get out of here, kicking and screaming. Thanks once again for everybody joining us. Toasty, appreciate your comments. We're getting out of here. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
If you like the show, follow Rhett, Jason, Ross, and Silver, the world's most lethally stupid internet personalities, on Twitter at DG Podcast or on Instagram at Distracted Gamers. If you liked or hated what you heard here today, you can email them at thedistractedgamers@gmail.com and share your feelings. Not that Jason would care, since he hasn't any, of course.
Oh my God, it's so juicy.